You're in for a treat today because I'm going to show you how to make a strawberry shortcake. It's delicious. It's got a cake on it as well as whipped cream and some juicy strawberries. I'm going to show you the ingredients and then we'll get started. Alright, so what you're going to need is you're going to need lots of strawberries, a half a cup of sugar, 2 1/4 cups of flour, 4 teaspoons of baking powder, an additional 2 tablespoons of sugar for the cake, and I'm also going to be using a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/3 of a cup of shortening, 1 egg, 2/3 of a cup of milk, and 2 cups of whipped cream. Let's get started. So what I have here is I have a baking sheet with the ring of a springform pan. That's what I'm going to be using in place of my baking pan today. So what I'm just going to be doing is I'm just going to be greasing it, lightly greasing it. Just going to brush some vegetable shortening on there just to make it nice and simple. I'm just using my brush here. And this is so that my cake won't stick to the pan once it's finished baking, and once I try to lift the ring of the pan out, that way we won't have any sticking. So this is what solves this problem here. Greasing. You can also just use a paper towel, or to make it even more simple, I would just use a cooking spray. But since again that I have a lack of kitchen tools up here in Michigan, I am just using a little brush just to get it nicely well greased throughout. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to take a little pinch of flour and I'm just going to sprinkle the flour around. You could take some of the extra flour and just get it up on the sides, because we don't want the cake to once again be sticking to this pan. Alright, so with my cake pan prepared and my oven already preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, I can prepare my strawberries. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the tops off and I'm going to slice them. I want to slice enough strawberries to make about a good 6 cups. Or about 3 pints. I'm just going to put the strawberries in this little container when they're done, and I'm going to just keep cutting. Alright, so I have my strawberries in a nice little small bowl here, and I am just going to add my half a cup of sugar, and I'm going to just lightly toss that with the spatula. What the sugar does is it creates something called an osmotic gradient, meaning that wherever it is, the water in the strawberries will head towards it. So this is going to make the strawberries really nice and juicy. Alright, my strawberries are really nice and coated. You can see that some of the juice is starting to get out of the strawberries here, because again the sugar creates an osmotic gradient and the waters in the strawberries will flow out towards the sugar. So I am gonna set this aside, continue releasing its juices until we are ready to top it with the cake. Now we're going to make our batter. Alright, so I have a nice large bowl here. I am going to dump in my flour, my 1.5 tablespoons of baking powder. A tablespoon is also equal to 3 teaspoons. 4 teaspoons is just an addition of a teaspoon. I am going to put in my sugar. That was the 2 tablespoons of sugar, and then my 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to take my whisk, just give that a short little mix. Next goes our shortening. I'm just going to try to get it out of here. My shortening is very cold. I put it in the freezer for a while just so that I could get it nice and cold, because because I'm going to be cutting it into the flour using a pastry blender, and I'll show you what that looks like once I get all of this out here. Alright, what I'm going to do now is I have this super cool tool called a pastry blender here. It looks a little bit like a potato masher, but this has like a horizontal handle instead of a vertical handle like you'd see on potato mashers. And it also has some little blades in it, which is used for making pie crusts. And what I'm just doing is I'm going to turn the bowl and scrape the flour into the center as I go. And I'm just going to cut the shortening into the flour until it resembles coarse crumbs. Once this is nice and crumbly, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my wooden spoon and make a little well in the middle. And I'm going to take my egg and crack it into this little bowl right here, little glass. It's important that you crack your eggs into a smaller bowl. That way it's easier to get any shells out of there. I'm just going to beat this well with a fork. That's good. I'm going to pour the egg into the well and get in my milk. And I am going to stir this until it all comes together. You don't want to overmix it, but just mix it until the batter comes together. Alright, so here is my nice little batter. If you could see it, it looks a lot more like dough than a batter. I'm going to just get the batter in here, and I'm gonna spread it around a little bit. I'm going to put this into the oven at 425, and I'm gonna bake it for about 15 to 20 minutes. So once this comes out of the oven, I'll be back to show you what's next. Alright, so here's our wonderful cake. 20 minutes at 425 degrees. You could see it's nicely puffed up because of that baking powder, and it's also really nicely golden brown along the edges. So what I'm gonna do is I have this on a cooling rack, which you cannot see because of course the baking sheet is larger than the cooling rack. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna simply let this cool down, and then we will make this a strawberry shortcake by topping it with the strawberries and the whipped cream. Okay, so now that the cake is cooled, what we're doing is we're just gonna lift up the ring and just look how cool it looks. It does look a bit messy. We're just gonna put it on a plate here. Wow, looks amazing. I'm gonna put it back on the cooling rack here. All my amazing strawberries right there. And we're going to cut it into 2 layers here. Now, I know it does look pretty short, so it's gonna be even shorter in 2 layers. And I'm having my mom do it since I don't make the best cuts. But just look at how crumbly this cake is. This is super, super cool. So, right here I have my beautiful juicy strawberries. And I'm going to, wait a second, can you let me show you. Look at how all this juice is dripping off it. Oh, it's so good. I am going to spoon some of the strawberries on top here. Oh, this looks so good. And these strawberries that I'm using came from these strawberry bushes. We just bought them today at a local farmer's market. So this is super, super amazing. Just look at this. What we're gonna do now is we're going to put the top layer on. And again, it's okay for it to be this crumbly. what I'm gonna do next is, do we need to put the strawberries on first and then the whipped cream?
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Mom's just helping out. So I want to get all this goodness on here. And I'm going to include some of the beautiful strawberry juice on there. It can be a bit messy, but it is something that we really, really like here. I'm going to just use this as a little spout, like the back of this, and just look at it. Oh, super, super amazing. And I got 4 more strawberries in here. I want to get that too. And then I'm going to take my whipped cream. Whoa. And I'm going to go all the way around here. Wow. And then here's some whipped cream in my mouth. It is delicious, but I'm gonna see you again next time, and I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Goodbye, and say goodbye, little whipped cream.